Hello, I'm John Burns and this is part of my series of short videos on hot tenting. Today I'm going to demonstrate the stove. Obviously the wood burning stove is the heart of any hot tent. This is the Edfell stove, manufactured by Tent Tipi. Basically the stove fits together, and inside here are the chimney sections, which pull out, and I'll be assembling those just in a few minutes. This section here is a very important piece which actually dissipates the heat of the chimney so it doesn't burn the tent down. So without that we'd be in trouble. I can just show you some modifications I've made to this stove. First thing, these stoves are great. One of the issues with them though is that it's called a hot tent, not a warm tent. That's because they produce an enormous amount of heat. So what you want to be able to do is to control the rate at which they burn. And you do that really obviously by controlling the earth flow through the stove. One important thing to do, an easy modification to do, is this piece of fire rope which I've just attached to the door. That means that the door seals very tightly when you close it. So that's the basic stove. These legs fold out underneath and you can then stand the stove on its legs. And obviously this chimney comes out here. So this is another modification I've made, again to control the rate of burning. It's just a damper, which is a disc that you turn. It's very easy to assemble. Just drill a couple of holes either side of the chimney, and then you can have your stove burning pretty slowly. So that's the stove so far. So now I'll just erect the chimney and I'll show you coming out of the tent, and I'll show you how I position the stove within the tent. So this goes on here, and it has a pin which is a retaining pin that just stops the stove from moving around, this chimney from moving around rather. So these are the sections of the chimney, and it constructs very simply. And what I normally do, I'll take that off just now. So I'll put this in the tent, I find the easiest way is to put just a couple of sections of the chimney on the stove, and it's quite easy to move it around then. And obviously it needs to be beneath the small hole in the top of the tent where the chimney will exit through the canvas. I think that's about right. So I'll go now and I'll put together, assemble the rest of the chimney. So this section is what fits on top of the chimney. As you can see, it's quite an extensive area of mesh. And this is what really dissipates the heat so that you can have your stove on without creating a fire, which is obviously fairly important. So this hooks onto here, and the reason for that is that essentially this mesh hangs from the top of the chimney. So I'll just put the remaining sections in. That's it. That's it. Then I find the easiest way, bring it in, find the little hole in the canvas, extend it out there, and this slots over the end, and there you have the stove. And I just move it over and make it a bit more central, and that is the stove up. So it's very quick to assemble. Next thing to do, of course, is to light it. So here's our stove set up inside the tent. Really quite easy to do. Just going to put a couple of firelighters in because I cheat, and some kindling. You don't need a lot of wood. If you fill the stove up with wood and light it, you're going to be outside fairly quick because it'll be too hot. So what I do is just a small amount of wood. You can always add more, and the great advantage of this kind of stove is that it will heat this tent, even no matter how cold it is, in about 5 or 10 minutes, and you'll be comfortable. And it's now, because I've put the damper in, it's very controllable. So that's really all. The small amount of wood like that, really, that's all you need to start it. And you have to be able to find your matches. There we are. All we're going to do now, light the fire, make sure my little damper's open. And there we go, we're getting little firelighter's going. I know you don't need to use a firelighter. That's my concession for an easy life. There we go. And I'll just leave that for a second, let it take. And now just close the door. And you'll see, if you look through the little vent, you can see the fire going well quite nicely. And I'll leave it like that really, just for a few minutes, just until it gets established. And after no time at all, you'll start to feel heat coming through this chimney. So that is basically how to use the stove. It's warm and under all conditions, and it also, if it's been raining heavily, it'll obviously dry out the tent, it'll dry you out. The heart of a hot tent is the stove. Thanks very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. I've been John Burns. Thanks very much.